All right, guys. So in this video, we're going to practice the second thing that we learned, or I guess the very last thing that we learned in class, which was evaluating a log. So actually doing some calculations, there's some thought involved, and figuring out what does a log equal. So I'm not going to give you what goes after the equal sign. That is your job. So we'll start with the mathematical, like calculating way to do it, and then we'll talk about some tips and tricks to get there faster. So in this problem, I have log base 5 of 125 equals x, and then as we always do in algebra class, we're going to solve for x. So we got to figure out what x equals. So one way that you can do this problem is you can do the wheel to make it in exponential form, and then you can do what we learned earlier this week. So when we're doing the wheel, it is 5 to the power of x equals 125. And then earlier this week, we learned that you can write this with a common base. So you can make it both sides be 5 to a power. And the right-hand side will turn into 5 to the third. And then once you get a common base, you can cross out the 5s, and the final answer would be x equals 3. So that's the super mathy, super like calculation way to do this problem. And that is really helpful on some of the more difficult problems. And maybe not this problem, maybe this problem wasn't that difficult for you, but it's a good process to know how to do. So let's do that one more time just to make sure we feel fully comfortable with the calculating way to do this problem. It's something good to fall back on if you can't figure it out using a shortcut. So here's another question. Now this question is missing some things. It's not equal to anything, and there's no base. So we can fill those things in. In our first video, we learned that the most common log is a log base 10, and that mathematicians are lazy and they don't write the 10. But if it helps us, we should write the 10 in there. So we're going to write a little 10 underneath the log. So if it helps you, write it in there so that you can see there's a 10 down there. And then if it also helps, set it equal to x so that you can do the wheel. So if it's not equal to anything, then that's what you're trying to find. That's where the x goes. So now I can do the wheel. 10 to the power of x equals 1,000. And we talked in our live person class earlier this week that 10 is like a really fantastic number because you can find its exponent just by counting the amount of zeros. And so on the right-hand side, there are 3 zeros, so that would be 10 to the third. And this one also has an answer of 3. So again, this is very mathy, very calculation heavy, lots of work shown how to do these problems. It's not the only way, but it's a good method to know if you ever get stuck. Now in class today, we talked about a shortcut, a faster way to do these problems. So if you really truly understand what a log is, then some of these problems you'll be able to just stare at and instantly write your answer. So if you remember from class, and maybe you didn't write it down in class, but you can write it down right now, we learned that the word log is asking a question. And the question that it is asking is, what power or exponent should I raise the base to so that it turns into this number? And then if you can figure out the exponent, then that's the answer. So if I'm given this problem, log base 3 of 81, this problem is asking, what power should I raise the number 3 to so that it turns into an 81? What's the exponent that goes on a 3 that changes it to an 81? And if you've started memorizing your exponents from earlier this week, you'll know the answer is 4. The exponent that I put on a 3 to make it an 81 is 4. 3 to the 4th is 81. And then that's just your answer, right? Just the number 4. You don't have to rewrite the whole thing. The answer is 4. So that's a little shortcut that you can use on these. Try on your own. So go ahead and pause the video, see if you can figure these out. And then when you're ready, restart. How'd you do? Let's check. So on the first one, if we did this mentally in our head, we say 2 to what power turns into 1 over 8? And the answer is 2 to the negative third. The negative will make it a fraction, and then 2 to the third is 8. Now, if you couldn't do that in your head, that's okay. Set it equal to x, do the wheel, and then do the work that we learned earlier this week. That's why we learned it. All right, now number 2 is from our live session. That one was pretty tricky. That one is asking 27 to what power turns into the number 3. And earlier this week, we talked about that if you have the exponent on the larger number, that you'll need to take a root or a radical. So this one's really asking, what kind of radical should I do on 27 to turn it into a 3? The answer is a cube root. And the cube root written as an exponent is 1/3. 1/3. 27 to the power of 1/3 equals 3, or the cube root of 27 equals 3. All right. Number 3, 4 to what power equals 4 to the 5th? Now, it's kind of a trick question. 4 to the 5th is 4 to the 5th. So here's another little helpful hint. If the base on your log, the little number down here, and the base on your number, this number right here, are the same, then they can cancel out, and your answer is just the exponent. So on this problem, we could have canceled the base of 4 and this base of 4, and then we would have been left with the number 5. Okay, so little trick. Let's talk about that one more time. If the base down here and the base up here are the same, cancel them out, and your answer is the exponent. Same thing here. I have log base 7 of 7. Those are both 7s. Cancel them out. Now, the exponent on this 7, it doesn't have one written down, but there is an invisible exponent. The invisible exponent is 1. So if you have these two are exactly the same and there was not even an exponent on that one, then the answer is just 1. Now, this can also be helpful for those other super tricky problems. So if you can rewrite this part, the regularly large written part of the problem, in the same version as this part down here, then you can find your answer. So on this one, if I can change that 1/32 to 2 to a power, then I can find my answer. So 32 is 2 to the 5th. And to change it from a fraction to a whole number, I make it a negative. And now it's log base 2 of 2 to the negative 5. And I can cancel out my 2's. My answer is negative 5. So here's a third way that you can try these problems. And so whatever makes sense to you, right? Like I'm showing you all these different ways because I know for some of you, the first way is going to be the best. The second way might be the better for other people. And then maybe this way is better for some other people. So I'm trying to give you some options on what makes the most logical sense to you. All right, let's try 3 more and then we'll be done for today. So go ahead and give these 3 a try and then we'll check and see how you did. All right, now number 4 is super tricky. So on number 4, you can't do 8 to a power to get 32. And so that one I would definitely recommend doing the calculation way. So I would set it equal to x, wheel it out, and then find a common base. So the answer to number 4 is 5/3. 5/3, and we can talk about that one more in class if you need to. Now, number 5. Number 5 is a little bit tricky. If you look at your secret compartments from last chapter, we had a rule about an exponent. And so the answer to number 5 is 0. So this question was asking you 5 to what power turns into 1. And last chapter, we learned that anything to the power of 0 turns into 1. What that also means for us is anytime that we take a log of 1, the answer will always be 0. So anytime that this number next to the log is a 1, doesn't matter what the base is. If this number is a 1, the answer is automatically 0. And that's something that you can memorize, okay? All right, let's take a look at that last one. Now, the last one, again, a little bit different. This one says 4 to the 5th equals x. So you just got to type into your calculator, what is 4 to the 5th? And it is 1,024. So I switched it up on you a little bit there. I hope today was very successful. This is the end of our videos, and I'll see you later.